And we are live for episode number 37 of Lowering the Barrier. Hello, everybody. How we doing? I've said this a lot in previous episodes, very frequently in some of the recent episodes. It's been a while. It has been a minute. So let me give you a recap of everything that's been going on. I had a baby, but not me. That'd be newsworthy. Nope, my wife did. We have a child, and he is about to turn 1 year old. So the last year has been the most exciting, just fun, just so fun, stressful, for sure, owning a business. And, Maddie was able to leave her job due to the growth of, what we've built together. And that does put a degree of pressure on me and this need for growth. Luckily, though, the beautiful thing about my job is that I'm not in this weird I don't know, what's a job that harms people? Cigarette sales. I am not a cigarette salesperson, right? But my job is helping people increase their health, their healthy living years, their strength, their mobility, all these kinds of things, right? And because of that, if I can grow the business, make better systems, get people better results, that means my business grows. So I get to do this really cool thing where if I can, it's a service-based thing, but I mean, it truly is very rewarding having that be a really positive kind of feedback loop. Like, okay, I grow the business, I help more people. I help more people, I grow the business. It's really cool. So I'm really, really grateful. And I'm grateful to you for being so patient in the delay with these podcast episodes. Because, yeah, it's just been part of that growth is we recently launched the Change Project. It has officially launched now. I think it is about 3 weeks ago at the time of this recording. We're recording this early July. I'm recording this early July, July 7th to be exact. I'll probably post it today or tomorrow. And yeah, the Change Project is going so much better than I thought it would at this stage of the game. I was hoping it would grow over time, obviously, but to see it get to the point where it is now, it's just really, really rewarding for everybody that's, checked it out. And we really appreciate you. There's 2 tiers if you're interested, light and core. You can go to my website. I'm not going to do a sales pitch for you right now, but I will say the AI components, the artificial intelligence assistant coach that we built for this program, this is completely custom for this program. Has been going. I thought it'd go well. It's been going so much better than I could have hoped for. So I'm just beyond excited about that. And yeah, eventually the goal is to, if you're a coach listening, the goal in the next 6 months, 3 to 6 months ideally, but 6 months on the high end, is to have your own AI assistant coach to be able to assist you in your programs. So anyway, let's get into the episode. All right, let me tell you a quick story about a tennis player you've probably never heard of. His name was Vitas Story. And back in the 70s and 80s, he was one of the top players in the world. He was talented, flashy, and he was kind of a rock star on the court, really played into the crowd, right? Despite all of, his talent and his showmanship, he had one major problem. That major problem was Jimmy Connors, one of the best tennis players ever to play the game. For 16 straight matches, Vitas lost to him. 16. I mean, imagine having a rival. I mean, you can't call it a rivalry at that point. Let's say we had Michael Jordan and LeBron play 1v1 in their primes, right? If one of them wins 16 times in a row, that's it. Rivalry's over. We've crowned the GOAT. Most people, by 16 matches, would be absolutely crushed. I mean, by 5, by 3, by 5, by 10 matches, you'd be crushed, right? 16 go by. Vitas says this is not going to define me. He thinks, okay, maybe I'm not that guy. Maybe I can't beat Jimmy. Maybe I'm just not that good. That's not Vitas. That's not how he's built. On the 17th match that they played against each other, something changed. Story beat Connors in straight sets, and after the match, he walked into the press conference, leaned real close into the mic, and said, "Let that be a lesson to you all. Nobody beats Vitas Story 17 times in a row." I mean, it's one of my favorite quotes in all of sports. It's one of my favorite stories in all of sports because it's not about dominance. And I love GOATs. If you're unfamiliar with that term, the greatest of all time. I love it. I'm a big UFC fan, MMA, the sport, mixed martial arts, but UFC as the league. Big UFC fan. I follow all the big fighters. I mean, even the small fighters. I've been watching for, God, I'm going to age myself 20 years. But there's something to be said about the underdog story. And Vitas didn't, he didn't win because all of a sudden he became better than Jimmy Connors. You lose 16 times in a row to somebody, you can pretty objectively say they are better than you, right? And Jimmy was better than Vitas. But he won that game against Jimmy because he stayed in the game long enough to get another shot. There's a point here. I'm going to get to it. That is the mindset that I want you to take into your fitness and into your health and into any long-term goal that actually matters. Whether it is your business or you want to run a 6-minute mile or you want to run a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, a full marathon. You want to bench press 225 pounds. You want to get your first body weight pull-up. You want to lose 50 pounds or gain 20. We're looking at a long road here. You don't necessarily have to win every single day, but you have to stay in the game. And that's how you win, genuinely. That's how you win the long term, because every day you're going to get knocked around, right? Someone's going to come up, your kid's going to get sick, your boss is going to be a shitter, work is going to be lame. Something's going to happen, right? And so you're going to take these bumps and bruises. But I want you to show up like Vitas and keep going so that you can say on that 17th game, nobody beats me 17 times in a row. Most people don't fail because they're lazy or they're weak. They fail because they assume it's over after a few bad days or even a few bad weeks. Maybe a missed workout. Maybe, the weekend that went sideways. We just celebrated 4th of July. A lot of people did. Maddie and I kind of had a chill night at home. We ate s'mores. It was amazing. But fitness doesn't work like that, thankfully. We do not need to have this perfect streak, perfect unending streak, right? We can just take it day by day. I haven't worked out in the last 3-4 days. I needed a mental break. Physically, I feel fine, right? But I just need a mental break from it. I was doing 4 or 5 workouts per week, every single week for the last, I don't know how many months. And I just need a little break. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take 7 days off. You know how much gains I'm going to lose? None. And when I come back, I'm going to be feeling really refreshed because I didn't beat myself up. I didn't guilt myself. I just took some time off and now I'm getting back to it. No biggie. All right. Let's talk about the next section here, which fitness isn't a game that you lose, right? You can't mess this up. The only way you lose is if you fully give up. If you say no, I'm canceling my gym membership. Shit, even if you do cancel your gym membership, not that big of a deal. Go do some split squats and push-ups at home. You don't even need dumbbells for those things. You could do a body. You're telling me that you can do 25 body weight split squats? Maybe you can, right? Maybe you really can, but with good form. Are you elevating the rear foot to make it even harder? I'm just saying, there are ways to do that. And let's say you can do that, right? Okay, throw a backpack on. Hold a kid, on your shoulders or around your chest. Hold some milk jugs or some 2 liters or something like that. There's a lot of ways that you can make this work. Whether it is a financial barrier of not being able to afford the gym you go to anymore, and you can't afford the $10 a month to go to Planet Fitness, that's fine. And you can't afford adjustable dumbbells either, that's fine. I mean, go look at some of the kids in maybe underdeveloped countries or even right here in America that just don't have access to the same state-of-the-art equipment or even any equipment. They're making it work with friggin' racks, man. You look up, they'll go down to any park that has a bar and they'll start doing pull-ups on it. They'll do push-ups. They can do lunges, squats, right? There's just a million ways that you can make, the workout side of thing works, And what about nutrition side of things, right? Let's say, okay, we're in the middle of summer and not a great time for a lot of parents out there. There's no doubt about that. The parents that I've talked to, at least that I work with, whether it's one-on-one or in the Change Project, they are swamped this summer. They've got soccer games. They've got equestrian. They've got fencing tournaments. They have all basketball tournaments. They're traveling around the state. They got vacations, because summer vacation, kids don't have school right now. So if that happens on the nutrition side of things, ease up, pump the brakes a little bit. If you have fat loss goals, for example, just dial it back a little bit. You don't need to go 100%. Let's say 100% is, let's say it's 1 pound per week that you're shooting for. Okay, do you think it's more realistic to shoot for half a pound per week? That'd be roughly a 250 calorie deficit per day. Or maybe it's time for maintenance. And I think a lot of people have this weird connotation that, okay, well, if I'm at maintenance, then I haven't made any progress. But what are we looking at here? When we are trying to change our body, do we care only about fat loss, or do we want some muscle growth too? Now, you might not know the answer to that, but I bet most of you do. You probably want a combination of both muscle gain and fat loss. Most of you, not all of you. I can't speak for everybody, of course, but a lot of you probably want that. Well, the reality is that you gain muscle faster at maintenance than you will in a deficit. So it's not like you're all of a sudden, no, the scale didn't budge during summer. If anything, that might be a win for a lot of people, because a lot of times during the summer, when those consistent habits, that routine that you're so glued to during the other seasons, when that goes out of the window, you might gain a little bit of weight. So if you can maintain during summer, that's actually a win in and of itself. But not only that, if you are lifting during that time, even if it's 1 or 2 times per week, you're gaining muscle at the same time. And you're gaining it faster than you would than if you were in a deficit. So that's another thing that I'd, consider is pivoting on the plan a little bit, nutritionally. Maybe it is trying something like calorie cycling, where if you're a person who likes tracking their calories, then track maybe a little bit lower calories, or target yourself for a little bit lower calories during the weekdays, Monday through Thursday, for example. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, bring up the calories a little bit. Maybe it keeps you in a deficit, small deficit. Maybe it brings you closer to maintenance. Either way, you need to allocate this to make sure that it fits within your lifestyle, your current goals, and you need to be able to somewhat enjoy it. Because if we're going through this, is a deficit super enjoyable? No. But how much weight do you have to lose? If you have to lose 5 pounds, okay, you could probably grit your teeth and move through it with 5 pounds, right? But if you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 plus pounds to lose, it's my strong suggestion that you make it part of your lifestyle rather than trying to do these short-term sprints. And trust me, I'm a big fan of aggressive fat loss. I think it can be a very intelligent tool for the right person in the right situation with the right mindset, but that's an individual thing, right? And for a lot of people, what works very well is focusing on the habits and the process, and the outcome is the outcome, if that makes sense. If you want to lose 20 pounds, okay, let's take a step, back here. What are the processes that would go into losing the 20 pounds? What are the habits that would go into that? And that's different for everybody. That's where you can get a little bit creative. Obviously, calorie deficit. Yeah, well, no shit, right? We've all heard that a million times at this point. If I said that, can you imagine if I said that? You'd be like, turn this shit off. But yeah, so that's what I'd say is be really flexible, with the nutrition, with the workouts. If you can only get in 1 workout per week, let's say you're doing 4 workouts per week, 60 minutes each. And now the summer hits, you don't have that time. No problem. Just do 1 set of each exercise. That'll bring it down by probably 75, 80% in terms of a time investment. Maybe add some supersets, right? Where you do 1 exercise followed immediately by a second exercise. There's a lot of things that you can do there. Maybe just reduce the frequency of your workout. Instead of doing it 4 times, do it 1 time, 2 times. Maybe add in a set of push-ups before you shower, right? There's a lot of things that you can do there. With this next section, I want to talk about, the 6 things that I'd really focus on to, air quote, win at fitness, but especially in the summer. Especially in the summer when it's busy, or whatever your busy season is. Maybe for accountants, it's around April, when tax season is starting to hit, or maybe it's quarterly, or maybe it is end of year, whatever it is. For a lot of parents, it's usually summer, but for whatever your busy season is, here are 6 major processes that should really help you out. You stick to 6 of these, you stick to 2 of these, use them as tools, use what you need, scrap what you don't. But let's get into it. So first, set your weekly minimums. I can't talk about this one enough. I'm big on lowering the barrier. It's the name of the podcast. It's the headline in my Instagram bio. I want to make all of this easier for you. And that means you need to make this easier on yourself. One thing that I said the other day to a one-on-one client, she's brand new working with me, and on our discovery call, before she signed on, she was telling me, like, during the summer it's so much harder. We have all these events, we have a concert to go to, we have the kids stuff, and I just kind of sat there and listened for a while, and then I said, I don't remember exactly how I worded it, but it was something along the lines of, are you coming into the summer? So I said to her, are you holding yourself to the same standards as you do in other seasons of life? During winter, yeah, you might be able to dial in and do all these things during the fall, during the spring, when kids are in school, when you don't have as many events, when you don't have as many social things going on. But during summer, a different season of life, are you holding yourself to the same standards? And she kind of sat there and said, it was like, yeah, she probably is holding herself to this high standard. And so I followed up and I asked her, like, okay, how do you change that? She kind of looked at me and said, I don't know. And so that's what we're going to work on. She did sign up and we're going to work on that. But, it's setting minimums. And that's something that you can do on your own. You don't need to hire me, although I'd love to work with you. I do have one-on-one spaces available now. Waitlist has gotten through, finally. But, you don't aim for perfection. I know so many of you want to label this all or nothing person, but holy shit, you need to break free from that. You need to relieve yourself of the burden and the stress that comes from this all or nothing mindset. And that happens by making your all very small. And it's, if you do this small bit of effort, that's an A plus. Great. Anything else is extra credit. So what are your non-negotiables? I mean, this is your new all. This is the weekly minimum. What's the minimum you can commit to, even on the most chaotic week? Like, really think, like, what is my week from hell? With work, with, friends, with social commitments, with, kids, with whatever it is, Your dog threw up. You're like, oh my God, as another thing, The refrigerator broke. Okay, that's pretty crazy. That'd suck. But maybe, maybe, that's a very realistic thing that could happen. So what is think about that and maybe even write it down. What's the minimum you can commit to on the most crazy week? Some ideas. 2 10-minute workouts. Could you carve out 2 sections of 10 minutes somewhere, anywhere across 7 days? Odds are basically anybody on the planet would say yes. 10 minutes, somebody would say yes. Could you do 1 meal prep session and just batch prep a bunch of protein, right? Doesn't have to be anything too crazy, but you just cook up, instead of doing dinner and you are cooking up a pound of chicken breast, for example, cook 2-3 pounds, throw it in a slow cooker, just do it all at once. So then you have that easy to pull from, so that you're not snacking, or choosing fast food options, right? What about something like 7,000 steps per day on average? Now, this is an arbitrary number. There's no like, oh my God, he said I need to get 7,000 steps. Look at where your steps currently are. If they're at 2,000, shoot, what if you tried for 3,000, 4,000 steps, right? Just up it a little bit. Now, if you're at 10,000 plus, you're good. Don't do this. You're already doing great. But if you're at 5,000, the difference that it would make for you to get to 6, 7, 8,000, it's actually pretty large. So maybe that's your new minimum. And maybe even instead of doing it per day, maybe you do that on average. So you spread that across a week. So 7,000, 7 days, 49,000. And you get 49,000 across the week. Maybe on the weekends you can get a little bit more, but on the weekdays it's a little bit less, right? And so, try to write down 1, 2, or 3 absolute minimums. And if you hit those minimums, you've won the week. Because you need to stop guilting yourself. You need to see this as your foundation and then build up from that. All right, tip 2, add workouts to your calendar. Can't say this one enough, right? If it's not on your calendar, it's optional, in my opinion. If it's on your calendar and you genuinely treat it like a doctor's appointment that you cannot miss, it's okay, let's say you have, I think I said this in a previous podcast actually. Let's say you have an abscess. Let's say you have, there's something oozing from your neck and you're like, oh my God, that doesn't look good, and it's painful, like pulsing pain. And you're like, oh God. And you call the doctor and they say, hey, we can get you in tomorrow, 9 a.m. Are you going to wake up at 8:30? Your eyes are open and you look at your clock and you're thinking, I'm so tired. And this thing's still oozing. I mean, it's like you got to change the sheets because this thing has oozed now onto onto your pillowcase, and you just be like, maybe tomorrow. I'll see. I'll call them later. I'll see if they have availability. No, you'd be up. You'd be wide awake. Like you'd be up an hour early, multiple alarms, right? Now, I'm not saying we have to set multiple alarms for our workouts, but genuinely treat them like, okay, I cannot miss them. And negotiate with yourself. That's something I really like. Negotiate with yourself. If you don't want to do a full 30, 45, 60-minute workout, don't. Just don't do it. But you got to have some kind of trade off. What's your trade off? Negotiate with yourself. It can't be 0 or 100. You have to go for a 5, a 10, a 25, It can never be 0. So what's your trade off? I mean, this is how you build momentum. This is how you build discipline. It's by not saying yes or no. It's by saying yes, but. Like, yes, I will work out, but it's only one set. Or yes, but I'm only doing the first exercise. Or yes, but today I am going to go for a walk instead. This is how you really make progress, is by negotiating with yourself. With the calendar thing, if you're a big routines person, I'd consider just throwing them in your calendar at the same time every week, blocking off maybe an hour time frame or 30 minutes even, and then just have it repeat on your calendar. Now, for me, I have 5 workouts that I choose from, and I just do them when I can, because I have the gym right in my garage, and that's never been, at least now, it is not an issue for me. It used to be. I used to not be as consistent with my workouts, but then it was just like, okay, well, now it's just something I do, and it's like brushing my teeth. I don't really think about it, or flossing. I don't really think about it. It's not like I have to get super motivated, or I have to, but it's because I've built that habit up over time. I did that negotiation, and then I shaped it, right? You build a habit up, you get the consistency, and then we can kind of mold it into the habit that we want it to look like. All right, my next point: be flexible, and like ruthlessly and intelligently flexible. You don't, and this kind of goes into the negotiation thing, like you don't fail if the plan changes. If you were planning on cooking dinner, right, and you had this, I don't know, let's say you're making tacos, right, and you have this pan full of ground beef, and the dog bumps into you, and you trip a little bit. You don't get burnt, thank God, but all the ground beef is all over the floor. Damn it. All right, well, now what? Okay, we're getting pizza. That's fine. Okay, that's totally fine. So you got pizza, right? You adapted. Now, how can we make the pizza work within our calorie goals? Does that mean that you have to have 1 slice and maybe like some Greek yogurt or something? Or 2 slices and maybe some Greek yogurt, or some other kind of high protein, easy addition, beef jerky, something like that, right? That's frequently what I do, especially when I'm in a fat loss phase. Genuinely, I do 2 slices of pizza and then 2 things of Oikos Greek yogurt. I mean, I'm talking, we got 30 grams of protein from that Greek yogurt. So now we got probably like 45, 50 grams of of protein. I was able to have my pizza. I really enjoyed it, but I'm still maintaining, that satiety. I am still hitting my protein targets. So be flexible with yourself. And, like I said, change your workouts if you need to, reduce the volume, reduce the frequency, do whatever you need to do. Change your meal plan even, but still use, the same basic principles. Protein, fiber, a lot of volume, using some kind of carbohydrate, fruit or veggie or carbohydrate source that is pretty high volume, like potatoes, for example. Flexibility is a skill. Negotiating with yourself, it's a skill. Next, point 4, rely on your environment. You are not always going to be, let me reframe this. You know who the most disciplined people are? In my opinion? It's the people who don't need to rely on discipline, because their lifestyle and their environment shapes them, and they just fit that mold. They have set up certain parameters for them, and they live within those boundaries, right? So you might think like, oh my gosh, that person is so disciplined, but like, that's just their environment. That's just the way things are. They're not this super, like, willpower fades. You need to design your surroundings to support your goals, not work against them. So if you have, if you're somebody who way overeats on candy, right? Is it a really good idea to have, the candy bowl right on your desk at work or right at your kitchen? If you're somebody who goes into the pantry and grabs a handful of chips, maybe you just move those chips to a less accessible area, and you can still keep them in the house. I still want you to enjoy them. Now, let me say, if If it's better for you to not keep them in the house, then get them out. Don't buy them anymore. I do think there's something to be said about not restricting things, for a lot of people, because when we restrict ourselves from certain things, we tend to want it more. And when we do get access to it, we can overconsume on it. And if you keep it around you, keep it nearby, you almost like normalize it. And so that's person dependent though. So you kind of need to maybe experiment. Does it make more sense to I had this one client up in Canada, and I worked with him for a while, and he was eating a ton of ice cream sandwiches every day. Not a joke, dead serious. He was eating a ton of ice cream sandwiches every day. And I asked him, do you have another freezer? Like, where are these ice cream sandwiches? He said, in my kitchen freezer. I said, do you have another freezer? He said, yes, in my basement. I said, can we put the ice cream sandwiches in the basement? Yep, sure. I mean, what do you think happened? Ice cream sandwich consumption plummeted, which obviously... And so it's the same thing. Like if I was overeating Oreos, instead of having them at eye level in my pantry like they are right now, I'd put them on a very high shelf. I would put them in a different room. I'd maybe put them in the garage. I'd put them in a place that's a little bit harder to access to, because that tiny 1% friction really makes a difference. So design your environment, on the more health promoting side of things, right? Maybe keep protein snacks in your car or in your bag or at work, Make sure that they are easily accessible for you. Maybe set out gym clothes the night before. That way you're just removing any friction and any decisions that you need to make. You don't even need to think about, okay, what am I going to wear to the gym tomorrow? Because it's right there. Maybe keep your water bottle, nearby. This is the hydration tip I recommend the most. Keep your water bottle. Just keep one nearby. You don't need to worry about this super specific, I need to drink X amount of ounces, per body weight or per day, whatever it is, right? I mean, all the hydration sciences look at your urine and look at your thirst. And sometimes thirst isn't the best judgment, because some people, especially in elderly age, start to lose that thirst sensation. But look at your urine. If it's light yellow, you're good. If it's moderate to dark yellow, drink more water or some kind of liquid beverage, right? So just change your environment, because the fewer decisions you need to make, the less you need to rely on willpower, the more likely you'll follow through. Willpower is fine, but you really shouldn't be relying on that. If you are, you need to change your environment a bit. All right, 0.5 out of 6. Use meal prep as a tool, but not a religion. I love the subreddit Meal Prep Sunday. So good for ideas. But some of those people are super intense about it. I mean, and obviously, right? They're on the subreddit. They're on, they're posting about it. Some of those people are very intense. They have like 3-hour meal prep sessions every single Sunday. I do not expect you to carve out multiple hours once a week, every week, to prep out every single thing, and then you're eating tuna casserole. Is that a thing? I just made that up. I don't think anybody's eating tuna casserole. If you are, message me. I want to know. I'm curious. I want to know more about the tuna casserole. Anyway, but you're eating the same thing, 7 days, 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week, right? And that's just like, oh god, that's not fun. So instead, maybe once a week, throw it in your calendar, right? Cook 2 proteins, chicken and turkey, or ground beef, or steak, or whatever it is. Cook a carb. Do a big batch of potatoes or rice or pasta or whatever, and then cook a veggie. And one thing that I saw is like a sheet pan full of veggies and potatoes and different assortment of things like that. You just throw it in the oven and roast it all, right? That could be a really good way of doing it. For us, we do a lot of times we have a rice cooker. I absolutely love the rice cooker. Can't recommend it enough. But we also do air fryer potatoes, like tiny little potatoes, cut them up, throw some seasonings on them, air fry them. And then, you have these 2 proteins, you have your carb, you have your veggie, you can mix and match now, right? You throw on some different seasonings and maybe some low calorie sauce. If your goal is weight loss, if your goal is weight gain, go nuts with the sauces. But if your goal is weight loss, weight maintenance, be very cautious and conservative with the sauces, right? Really adds up quick. Make sure you measure it out. But that's an example of a way to make meal prep, not feel like this super daunting thing. Is just be like, okay, these 2 proteins, I kind of like these. If I had 6 ounces of chicken or whatever to grab from, 4, 5, 6 ounces of chicken, throw that in, I don't know, like a salad or something like that. I could use a salad kit, or, I could just heat up some rice in a rice cooker, take 20 minutes. I don't even have to be there for it. Like, these are ideas that you can use to make meal prep seem a lot less intense. Think of it as like a meal support, right? Not this like super rigid plan. Meal prep should be used, in my opinion, to reduce friction, not like lock yourself into these are the things that I need to do. All right, last point here. Just review and adjust weekly. Maybe when you do that meal prep, maybe the same time you spend like 5, 10 minutes just kind of looking back at your week, the last 2 weeks. How are things going? Is my weight, if you have a body weight goal, is my weight trending in the direction that I want it to go? If not, okay, what do I need to do about that? Shameless plug. If you're on the core tier of the Change Project, we have the AI assistant coach that checks in with you bi-weekly, every 2 weeks on Monday. You have the option in app. You fill out this check-in form. It's so cool, you guys. You fill out this check-in form, and then you hit submit within like 5 seconds. I mean, it's basically instant, but within 5 seconds, you're going to get an email with a response tailored to you in your email. And then you click a button and you can continue the conversation to dig a little bit deeper into your obstacles, what's going well, what's maybe not going well, and really figure out a tailored solution for you. I mean, the AI it's so cool. Anyway, so review and adjust weekly. What worked this week? What didn't work this week? What's the plan for next week? Maybe just take 5 minutes to kind of check in with yourself. If you don't have a coach on your side, you don't have a program that you're following, you're kind of doing this solo, then figure out what's a good system for you. Maybe it's having your own spreadsheet. Maybe it's just having a notepad or a notebook or things like that, to kind of like look at some checkboxes, look at some data points. Yeah, some data points might be, if you have a weight loss goal, obviously look at weekly averages for weight, right? Look at your calorie intake. Is your weight not going down and you want it to be? Okay, then bring calories down by 200, 300 or so and rinse and repeat. Before you do that, I'd always kind of question, how accurate were you being? Most people are pretty inaccurate with their calorie tracking. I don't blame them. It is a skill that you develop over time. Same as being a carpenter or something like that. You ask me to build, I mean, here we go. I'm such a bad carpenter. I wouldn't even know what to build. A table or like a bench or something. I don't know. You ask me to build one of those, it's going to come out pretty dang ugly. But if I did that 50, 100 times, over the course of a year, you're all of a sudden going to be like, hold on, I didn't know this guy was a carpenter. Yeah, I've been working at it. Same thing with tracking your calories, right? You get better at it. Also, another shameless plug, we do have a calorie calculator and a calorie adjuster. So if you plug in your weekly data for your weight and your calories, it will tell you what your calorie maintenance is very accurately, as long as your data is accurate. And then it'll also give you updated targets based on your goals. All right. So yeah, the last point I have on like that point 6, which was reviewing and adjusting things. You don't want to judge yourself. You don't want to be like, oh my God, what a good or bad week. I mean, what a good week. Great. You can give yourself positive feedback, right? But don't beat yourself up. But it's about learning patterns, right? So you can keep improving, because if things didn't go your way, okay, well, what were the obstacles and how do I solve them? All right. So now I want to just talk about like 3 real life examples and kind of like what this person could do, maybe what I would do with them or what this person could do on their own. So first, I'm also going to be using like the archetype system that we have in the Change Project. So there's 5 different archetypes: the shift worker, the high achiever, the caregiver, the essentialist, and the socialite. So I'm going to be covering 3 of those. So first, Pam, the caregiver. So let's say her goal is lose 10, 15 pounds, right? She's not trying to lose 40, 50. She's pretty comfortable with her weight. She just wants to tighten up a little bit, lose 10 to 15. It's not a massive goal, but it's important to her. So, it doesn't need to be extreme to be valid, right? So her lifestyle, she's juggling kids, aging parents, and work. She is feeling very overwhelmed. She's got a lot on her plate right now. She's not incapable, just, that bubbling point is kind of hitting. It's at her high end. It's intense for her right now. So the plan is to meet her where she's at. I would not want to say like, okay, Pam, okay, we got to lock in now. You got to forget about your kids. You got to forget about your parents. You got to forget about your job. You need to lock in, Pam. Like, no, that's not reasonable. We need to meet everybody where they're at. So instead of doing these hour-long workouts 4 or 5 times per week, we're going to do 20-minute home workouts. You don't even got to go to the gym. All right, we're gonna do that 2-3 times per week. I'd set you up with 2 times per week. And if you want to do this third bonus workout, great. Awesome. But let's get at least these two, right? Once a week, maybe twice a week, let's prep protein staples and let's just use frozen veggies. Don't even worry about getting fresh veggies, chopping them. Let's just get a chopped, whatever, frozen pack of veggies. Those stir fry veggies from Costco, Meijer, whatever grocery store you have around you, Walmart, are great. Let's maintain during your busiest weeks. Let's maintain weight, move toward calorie maintenance, bring calories up toward calorie maintenance during the harder weeks, right? Maybe plan 1 month and ahead. Let's look at this month and just maintain calorie maintenance on those weeks, and then the deficit on the slightly easier weeks. So the weeks that you don't have a ton of appointments, a ton of work obligations, let's go for a deficit there. So yeah, weight loss is going to take a little bit longer, but it's sustainable. It's realistic. We're planning ahead to make sure that your energy levels aren't tanking when you need them to be supported, right? Pam wins by being adaptable. Her success is not this daily perfection. It's staying in motion over the long haul. All right, example 2. We got Dwight. Dwight is the high achiever. His goal, gain muscle while managing stress, okay? Even driven people struggle. You can be rising the ranks at work. You could be an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what you are. You might thrive in one area, but be kind of falling apart a little bit on another area. Sometimes overachievement in work can make consistency harder because you're the go-to person now. Okay. And that's the situation for Dwight. His lifestyle right now, long hours at work and a lot of travel. He has to be on a plane every single week. He's going across the country, meet with different people, right? Sometimes even, outside of the country. So he doesn't always have perfect control over what he's eating because he's entertaining with work, right? His plan obviously cannot rely on rigid structure. I mean, it can't. He's not home by 5 p.m. every day. Sometimes he's not even in his home state. Sometimes he's not even in his own country. So winning here looks like that minimum that we talked about earlier in this episode, the minimum effective dose for him. So let's focus on 2 workouts per week. And these are going to be flexible, whether you are at home, whether you are at the gym, or you have a hotel workout. Okay, we're just going to work on 2 times per week workouts. They're going to be 20, 30 minutes, but we can add to them if you're in a state, a city, a work event, whatever it is, and you have a little bit more time. You can always add to them, right? We're going to focus on choosing high protein and lean protein options from meals at restaurants. This guy's eating out a lot, right? Dwight's always entertaining people. We're also going to work on reducing the alcohol consumption because it's really easy when you're entertaining a client or a boss or things like that the drinks come out. They want to share a glass of wine and you just say, hey, I'm only having 1 glass tonight. Okay, there we go. We're going to work on sleep, because sleep is so crucial for long-term success. And I care more about Dwight's sleep and energy levels than I do about his perfection on the macronutrients, right? I want him to eat plenty of protein. I want him to hit plenty of fiber, but more than anything else, I need him to prioritize his quantity and quality of sleep. So we're going to work on maybe changing the environment in his bedroom a little bit, or trying to figure out what a great pre-sleep bedtime routine is to kind of kick his brain and body into, okay, it's time for bed, so that he can use this sleep routine, pre-sleep routine when he is at home or on the road. Progress is going to look different for every season with Dwight. He's not chasing optimal because it's not possible for him. All right, last example. We got Jim. He is the essentialist. His goal is to stay consistent after weight loss. The post-weight loss maintenance is one of the hardest and least talked about challenges in fitness. How many people do you know, maybe it's even you, that have lost 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds and then it slowly crept back up? Maybe because they went through this busy life, maybe because you went through this busy season in life. But that post-weight loss maintenance period, it's tough. And so that is what Jim is really here for. He doesn't care about being a bodybuilder and getting shredded and going on stage and stripping down to nothing but his underwear, getting all tanned up and oiled and flexing, right? He just wants to be healthy. He worked very hard on this weight loss and now he wants to maintain it. He wants simplicity and he wants to avoid the burnout. Okay? Because this needs to be a lifelong thing for him. The goal for him is not to do more. It's to do what's sustainable. All he wants to do is maintain his weight, get a little bit stronger in his lifts over time. That's super doable without this super strict regimen or routine. So here's what I would do. I'd repeat the same 4 to 5 meals roughly ish, at different, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we have this rotation of 2 to 4, maybe breakfast. We have this rotation of 3 to 5 ish lunches. Obviously you can do more than that if you want. And then we have this dinners, options of maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to maybe 10 or 15 different options that are like his staples. Now he can experiment outside of those anytime he wants, but he's going to have those staple options on hand at all times. And maybe he does this with grocery pickup, grocery delivery, whatever it is, right? But we are going to make sure that he has those groceries in the house routinely, okay? Next, he's going to walk daily, whether that is inside, whether that is playing with his dogs, playing with his kids, going for a walk outside, using a walking pad at work, whether it's work from home or work at an office, or just a 5-10 minute treadmill session. He's going to walk every single day. And again, he's only going to lift 2 times per week. You guys are going to hear me say that a lot. You don't need to work out 4, 5, 6 times per week. There are diminishing returns to the amount of volume that you do and the effect that it has on muscle growth. Okay? So if you work out 4 times per week, how much better is that going to be than 3 times per week? It's better, but it's not going to be this like night and day difference where at 3 times per week, you're barely gaining muscle, and 4 times, it's like, oh my God, I am a Greek god. I have unlocked Super Saiyan. For my Dragon Ball Z fans out there, that's probably a limited bunch. Anyway, next we're going to track 1 to 2 key metrics. I don't want to overload Jim. He's looking for the essential stuff, right? So we're going to maybe shoot for fiber and steps. Let's say I know Jim's protein is already in a really good spot, but I've looked at his diet logs and I know his fiber is a little bit low. Then that's what we're going to focus on. Because if you're hitting fiber, you're probably going to be pretty satiated. I mean, how many people are genuinely getting 25 to 35 plus grams of fiber per day? I mean, it's like 5%. That's actually studied. 95% of Americans don't eat enough fiber. So that's maybe what we focus on with Jim, potentially. Fiber and steps. And this is going to be different for everybody, right? Jim's win is preserving his results without letting fitness take over his life. Simplicity is his strategy. Okay? All right. Those were the 3 examples. I hope those were helpful. When I was writing those out, I was like, damn, I think this could be really good. I hope a few of you kind of saw yourself in one of those 3 characters. I also chose names for The Office. So if you didn't catch that, go back and check out the names I used. But you win fitness by staying in it. Now, like I talked about at the top of this episode, you win it by staying in it. Now, the biggest obstacle for people, in my opinion, the biggest reason that they fail is because they think temporary struggle equals failure. Like that, oh, you're just not a fitness person anymore. We are all fitness people. This is designed for all of us, but you are setting your barriers and your expectations way too high. You need to stay engaged through the messier parts because that is what leads to success. You win by adjusting, not quitting. You win on attempt number 17. Nobody beats you 16 times in a row or 17 times in a row. You can lose 16 times in a row, but nobody beats you 17 times in a row. And you win by realizing that your path does not need to look like anybody else's. Maybe you see what I do, or maybe you see what your favorite fitness influencer does, or your sister or your cousin. Maybe you see what they do and you're like, okay, well, I should do that. No, you don't need to do what they do. It doesn't matter at all. Nobody's journey is going to look exactly like yours. And don't try to put yourself in this one-size-fits-all model. Okay? So this week, my takeaway from this episode, I hope that this was helpful, but my takeaway would be, what does staying in the game look like for you? Today? This week? This month? What takeaways are you taking from this podcast? Did you write any notes? Are there things that you're going to take action on? Because if, you just listen to my voice for an hour, then thank you. I appreciate you. But I also want you to be able to take something actionable away from this. So what component of this are you going to take away? What are you actually going to act upon? I want you to feel inspired from this, but I also want you to take action on it. Now, think practically. You just invested 45 minutes roughly of your time listening to me. And now it's time to put pen to paper, write something down on your phone of, hey, this is what I'm going to do this week. This is my minimum. These are my non-negotiables. This is what I'm going to meal prep. This is my grocery day. Okay, I'm setting up the calendars in my workouts in my calendar. Take one of those actions and I will be very, very happy. All right, that is where I'm going to leave it today. I felt like I started a little bit rocky, if I'm being transparent. It's been a while since I've done a solo episode, or just episodes in general, but I feel like I really started to hit my groove 50% of the way in there. So if you got past that hurdle and you're listening to this, thank you so much. It's hard talking to yourself for like 45 minutes straight. It's very difficult, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have an awesome day. I do really encourage you to check out the Change Project because I'm very proud of it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. If you want to give me a 5-star review on this podcast, I'd be very, very appreciative. And if you want to share it with somebody else, I would appreciate that even more. Okay, that's it. We're going to leave it there. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.